Montana Territory, June 1873. The sun was barely up when the first shot split the quiet along the trail. "Riders, East Ridge," someone shouted. The wagon train erupted into chaos. Mules shrieked. Women clutched children. Men scrambled for rifles. Dust rose thick as the freight wagons lurched forward, wheels groaning under the weight of goods and fear. Isaac Whitlow kicked his bay mare into a gallop, rifle slung across his shoulder, hat low over his brow. He had been riding scout for the wagon train since they left Fort Benton 10 days ago, and he had seen signs of trouble, hoofprints too fresh, campfires too close, but no one wanted to believe bandits would come this far north. Now the riders were real, and they were close. "Drive them down the gulch," Isaac shouted to the lead wagon driver. "Keep moving." The train veered south toward the narrow ravine, hoping the tight pass would slow the bandits. Isaac wheeled his horse around, scanning the hillside. He spotted 5 of them, ragged men with pistols and greed in their eyes, cutting fast across the ridge. He rode hard, firing twice to slow them, then peeled off toward the rear. His job was to make sure no one fell behind. The last wagon was bouncing wildly, its canvas flapping. He saw a young boy struggling to hold the reins, his face pale. No adults in sight. "Where's your folks?" Isaac shouted as he pulled up beside the wagon. The boy could barely speak. "Gone they ran, I do not know." Isaac steered the horse close, grabbed the reins from the boy, and forced the wagon faster. At the edge of the ravine, he jumped down and helped the kid off. "Stay low. Hide in the rocks with the others." The boy nodded and ran. Isaac climbed back up. The dust was thick, the screams fading as the train disappeared into the gulch. He scanned the area one last time, heart thudding. Then he saw her. She was crouched behind a fallen pine, dark skirts stained with dirt, arms wrapped around something small. She did not move when he approached, just tightened her hold. "Ma'am," Isaac called gently, rifle lowered. She looked up fast, eyes wild. Her face was streaked with sweat and soot, but her hands were steady on the bundle in her arms. A baby's blanket peeked out. "Please," she whispered. He was crying. "I could not keep up. They would have seen us." Isaac dismounted slowly, careful not to startle her. "You are safe now. The bandits are chasing the wagons. I can get you out." She hesitated, then nodded. He stepped closer. "What is your name?" he asked. "Nella Zade," she said quietly. "This is my son. His name is Zeke." The baby stirred, a soft whimper escaping the folds of cloth. Isaac crouched beside her. "I am Isaac Whitlow. Let me help you." She looked at him long, uncertain. Then she shifted Zeke into one arm and reached for Isaac's outstretched hand with the other. They moved fast. He lifted her gently onto the horse, then passed Zeke up into her arms. She held the baby close as Isaac mounted behind her and turned the horse toward the gulch. They rode hard through the trees, Isaac keeping them low and hidden. Nella barely spoke, but when she did, her voice was sure. "I thought we were done for," she said as they reached the ravine. "I could not run anymore." "You did right hiding like that," Isaac said. "If I had not seen you." She turned her head slightly, her cheek brushing his shirt. "But you did." They made it to the gulch just as the train slowed. The wagons had bunched up near the narrow bend, tension thick. Isaac helped Nella down, then reached for the baby. She hesitated, but let him hold the child while she climbed down. Zeke was a small thing, warm and quiet now. Isaac held him carefully, surprised at how natural it felt. A woman from one of the wagons ran over. "We can take her in ours," she offered. Isaac gave Zeke back to Nella, but his eyes stayed on her. "You sure you are all right?" She nodded, brushing hair from her face. "I am, thanks to you." The bandits never reached the gulch. They must have given up or circled off. By sunset, the train was camped in a shallow basin, fires low, the worst of the panic fading. Isaac sat on a rock near the edge of camp, checking his saddle. He looked up when Nella approached. She carried Zeke in one arm, a blanket draped over her shoulder. "He is finally sleeping," she said. He nodded, glad to hear it. "I just wanted to thank you again," she said softly. "I do not know what would have happened if you had not seen us." Isaac stood. "You saved him by hiding. I just helped finish the job." They stood close now, the firelight catching in her hair. She looked tired, but there was something steady in her eyes. "Do you have anyone waiting?" she asked. "No," he said. "I have been on the trail most of my life." She nodded like that made sense. "Me neither. Zeke is all I have." He looked down at the baby, then back at her. "You did good getting him this far," she smiled faintly. "I did what I had to." They stood quiet for a moment, the night settling around them. Then Nella said, "You riding with the train the rest of the way?" "I was planning to," Isaac said. "But I can stick close to your wagon in case trouble comes again." Her eyes softened. "I would like that." He smiled, and this time she smiled back for real. Isaac watched her walk back toward her wagon, the baby cradled against her chest. He felt something shift in his chest, a quiet, steady pull. And for the first time in a long while, he was not thinking about the next trail or the next town. He was thinking about her. The trail narrowed the next morning as the wagons pushed deeper into the Judith Basin. The skies were low and silver, with clouds dragging their bellies across the peaks in the west. Sagebrush lined the path, and the scent of wet earth clung to every breath. Isaac rode ahead, reins loose in one hand, scanning the country with quiet eyes. The bandits hadn't shown again, but he didn't trust calm that came too quickly. Behind him, Nella's wagon creaked along the uneven terrain. She drove it herself now, hands firm on the reins, back straight despite the long hours. Zeke was tucked in the crook of a folded quilt beside her, sleeping more than he had since the ambush. Isaac checked back more than once, just enough to see she was keeping pace. The train stopped near a stream by mid-afternoon. Water pooled around the roots of cottonwoods, and the air buzzed with insects. Isaac unsaddled his bay and rubbed her down, then walked to the edge of the creek, boots sinking slightly in the mud. He crouched there, washing his hands. "You know horses better than most," Nella said behind him. He looked over his shoulder. She was standing with her sleeves rolled up, her skirt pinned to keep the hem from dragging in the muck. "I grew up with them," he said, dipping a hand back into the water. "My father broke mustangs for the army. I watched more than I listened." "Learned anyway." She stepped beside him, lowering a dented tin cup into the current. "My husband never could keep one from throwing him. He was better with oxen, stubborn things." Isaac studied her face. There wasn't grief there, not fresh, but a trace of distance, like the memory sat on a shelf she didn't dust too often. "How long's it been," he asked, "since the fever took him?" She didn't look up. "Almost 2 winters," he nodded, watching the water swirl around his fingertips. "We were headed to Helena," she added. "His brother promised work, then the baby came early and everything shifted." "You still aiming for Helena?" She shook her head. "Not anymore. Nothing's waiting there now." He stood slowly, brushing his palms dry on his trousers. "What is it you're hoping to find, then?" She glanced down at the cup in her hands. "Room to breathe. A patch of land I can call mine, someplace quiet." Isaac didn't answer right away. The wind picked up, rustling the cottonwoods. He looked toward the wagons, where children were chasing each other through the grass and someone was chopping kindling. "There's good land near the mussel shell," he said finally. "Rich soil, not many folks yet." She met his eyes. "You sound like you've seen it." "I've passed through." "Thought about stopping more than once." "But you didn't." "Not then." She nodded, then turned to leave. "Miss Zade," he said. "Nella," she corrected gently without turning fully. "Nella," he repeated. "You planning to drive that wagon all the way alone?" Her brow lifted. "You offering to take the reins?" "I'm offering to ride beside it if you'll have me." She considered that, then gave a small nod. "I'd like that." That night they made camp near a rise of bluffs that caught the last of the light. Isaac helped her pull the heavy tarp tight over the wagon bed before dusk fell. The baby stirred once but settled quickly when Nella laid him close. She lit a small lantern and placed it between them as they sat on overturned crates. "I keep thinking about the ridge," she said, voice low. "How close they were, how fast it all turned." "Didn't think I'd make it either," Isaac admitted. "Some days don't warn you they're gonna change everything." She picked at the fraying edge of her cuff. "I didn't used to be afraid, not like this." "Being afraid don't make you weaker," he said. Just means you've got something worth losing. Her eyes lifted to his, steady and thoughtful. Is that what you think I am? Worth something? I know it, he said without looking away. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The lantern's light flickered between them, soft and warm. Then Zeke stirred, a quiet sound from the wagon bed. Nella rose with a sigh and reached for him. I should feed him before he wakes the whole camp, she said. Isaac stepped back, giving her space. I'll have coffee in the morning, he said. If you want to sit a while. She gave him a nod, her expression unreadable but not closed, the kind of look that invited a man to keep showing up if he had the patience to wait. Isaac returned to his bedroll by the fire, lying back beneath the stars. The night was clear now, the danger behind them for the moment. He didn't sleep right away. His thoughts rested on the shape of her voice, the way she'd said his name, the quiet promise in her step. He hadn't planned to stay long with the train, but some things were worth changing plans for. The wind shifted 2 days later, bringing the scent of pine and wet stone as the train followed a shallow valley south of the snowy mountains. The terrain grew rougher, with narrow ledges overlooking steep ravines, and the wagons had to slow where the trail dipped sharply. Isaac rode alongside Nella's wagon, his horse keeping pace with the oxen. Neither spoke much through the morning, but it wasn't silence that weighed between them, it was ease. When they stopped to rest at midday, Nella unhitched her team near a stand of juniper. Zeke dozed in a crate padded with folded cloth, shaded from the sun. Isaac tied his mare to a sapling nearby and pulled 2 tin mugs from his saddlebag. Didn't figure you for a coffee man twice a day, Nella said, kneeling to check the baby's blanket. I don't always, Isaac replied, pouring from his canteen, but the taste's better when it ain't boiled half to death like some of these fellows make it. She took the mug from his hand, fingers brushing his. You got away with animals and beans. That's useful. He leaned against a fallen log, watching the line of wagons stretch back through the valley. You ever been farther west than this? No, she said. My people were from Missouri. My husband wanted to see the Rockies. I was just trying to keep up. Isaac ran a thumb along the rim of his cup. My mother used to talk about Missouri, said the air there felt heavy like it carried too much memory. Nella looked over. She still living? No. Cholera took her when I was 15. She didn't offer sorrow or comfort, just nodded like she understood the kind of grief that carves out a place inside you and stays quiet there. I remember her singing in German, he said after a time. Didn't know what the words meant, but the sound of it stayed with me. Nella's voice softened. My papa used to read scripture out loud in Dutch. I barely understood it, but I liked the way it filled the room. They sat in the quiet that followed, the wind combing through the grass. Zeke made a small noise in his sleep, and Nella leaned in to check him. He's been better the last few days, Isaac said. He's steadier when the wagon doesn't jolt so much, and I think he hears your voice now. He doesn't cry when you're near. Isaac blinked, looking away. Some babies don't mind me. Others scream like the devils pinch them. She tucked the edge of the blanket under Zeke's chin. He knows who means him no harm. Later that afternoon, they crossed a stretch of marshy ground where the wheels sank deep. Isaac walked beside her wagon, boots wet to the ankles, helping guide the oxen through without snapping the axle. Nella held the reins steady, her jaw tight. Almost through, Isaac said, pushing against the front wheel. Wish I had your legs, she muttered. You make this look easy, he laughed, the sound low and surprised. Only because I've ruined enough boots to know where not to step. Once they were clear, she climbed down and wrung the bottom of her skirt. If I ever settle somewhere, it's going to be dry. I've had enough muck for one lifetime. Isaac looked at her then, really looked. You thinking about where or just what you want to avoid? She straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. I think about where when I feel like I can afford to. Right now, it's just 1 mile at a time. I know a place, he said. South of the crazy mountains, there's a bend in the river, good grass, quiet. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, would it be strange to want to see it, even if I don't know yet whether I'll stop? No, he said. It would be stranger not to. That evening, after supper had been passed around and the light had fallen to a soft blue dusk, Isaac carried a strip of canvas to Nella's wagon and tied it between the sideboard and a nearby tree, making shade for Zeke's resting place. He didn't say anything when he did it, just handed her a wooden peg to hold the line steady. When he turned to leave, Nella touched his sleeve. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said. "Then why?" He looked down at her hand, then back at her face. "Because it matters to me that you're not alone in this." Her fingers lingered a moment longer, then fell away. "You've got a careful way about you, Isaac Whitlow. I've learned the worth of quiet things." She gave the smallest nod. "Good night, then." He tipped his hat and walked back to his bedroll. Behind him, Nella lifted Zeke into her arms and sat under the canvas, rocking him gently as the stars came in. The trail curved westward by early evening, pressing the wagon train toward a valley rimmed with cottonwood and chokecherry. Somewhere beyond the next ridge, the land would widen again. But for now, the wagons rolled single file through a narrowing pass where the light thinned early and the air turned cool. Isaac walked beside Nella's team, his hand brushing the edge of the yoke as the oxen plodded forward. The wheels creaked under the weight, but the track held dry and firm. Zeke lay swaddled in the crate behind the seat, his small form rising and falling in sleep. "You ever think about settling?" Nella asked as they cleared a low rise, her eyes fixed ahead. "Not just passing through." "I mean planting something, staying long enough to see it grow." Isaac didn't answer right away. He adjusted the strap of his rifle and glanced up at the ridgeline where a hawk coasted slow through the air. "I've thought about it," he said finally. "But thinking and doing never managed to meet." "Why?" "Because I never saw the point of staying put if nobody was there to stay with." She didn't speak after that, but her hand shifted on the reins, the leather creaking softly beneath her grip. They made camp near a shallow bend in a creek where water moved just enough to keep the mosquitoes down. The wagons formed a loose crescent, and the sky above turned the color of wet slate. Nella busied herself spreading Zeke's blanket beside the wheel, her motions careful but practiced. Isaac gathered dry branches from the tree line, laid them under a flat stone, and coaxed a fire to life with flint and steel. When dusk settled, Nella walked to where he sat carving a small piece of ashwood with a penknife. She paused just beside the firelight. "He took his first step yesterday," she said. "One foot then fell into the flour sack." Isaac looked up. "You didn't say?" "I wasn't sure it counted. It felt like something out of place, like I should have had someone to tell it to right then." He set the carving down. "Well, now you've told someone." She sat across from him, tucking her knees beneath her skirt. "There's so much I missed the first time. When my husband was alive, I was always rushing around him, not with him. I don't know if I really saw him." "You were surviving," Isaac said. "A lot of folks never get past that." "I'd like to," she said, her eyes stayed on the fire. "I'd like to stop feeling like I'm always late to my own life." Isaac reached for the ashwood piece and held it out to her. It was shaped like a small horse, rough but sure. "I didn't know what I was making until just now. Figured Zeke might like it when he's a little older." She turned it over in her hands, the firelight flickering across her knuckles. "Thank you." His voice was quieter. "You're welcome." The baby stirred behind her and she turned, rising to check him. Isaac watched her silhouette against the fire, her body bent gently over the sleeping child. Something in his chest ached, not sharp but solid, like a door had opened somewhere deep inside and the wind had shifted through it. When she returned, her hands were empty. "He's fine." "You're good with him," Isaac said. "I didn't know I would be," she admitted. "I'd never held a baby before him, not even once." "You'd never know it," she laughed softly, the sound low and tired but real. "I used to think I'd be a milliner. My mother taught me lacework, said I had careful hands." Isaac tilted his head. "And what changed your mind?" "I married a man who needed a mule team and a strong back more than a bonnet. I gave up my needles for a harness." "You regret it?" "No," she said. "But sometimes when I'm alone, I think about thread and ribbon and wonder what kind of hands I'd have now if I'd chosen different." He nodded once. doesn't mean you can't pick it back up someday. Maybe, she said, her voice quiet again. But I'd need a place to put the ribbons. Isaac turned toward the creek where moonlight ran along the surface like a pale thread. You'd have one if you wanted. She didn't answer, but he felt the shape of her gaze settle on him. I'm not asking anything, he said. Just saying what's true. Her voice was steady when it came. Maybe I want it too. The fire burned low and neither of them moved to add wood. The darkness pressed in soft, not with threat but with quiet. Isaac leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. I could show you that bend in the river, he said, not looking at her. After we reach the end of the line, if you'd want to see it. I'd like that, she said. He nodded once, eyes still on the fire. Then he stood and offered his hand. She took it without pause, letting him guide her up. Their palms fit, nothing more than that, but the weight of it settled something between them. Not a promise, not yet, but the beginning of one. The night deepened, and Zeke slept on. The final stretch of the journey brought the wagon train into flatter country, where the land opened wide beneath the sky and the mountains softened in the distance. The grass grew taller, gold at the tips, and the air smelled faintly of sweet clover. The last of the river crossings had passed, and the talk around campfires turned to where folks would go next, what they'd build, who they might become if the land let them. Isaac rode beside Nella as they left the trail behind and veered south, away from the last wagons. No words passed between them until the dust settled and the sound of wheels faded into distance. Zeke napped in the crook of Nella's arm, his small fingers curled against her collarbone. They stopped at dusk near a rise where the grass sloped gently toward a river bend. The water moved slow and wide, glinting copper in the low light. Cottonwoods clustered along the bank, and beyond them, a stretch of open meadow rolled into the horizon. A line of old fencing, half fallen, marked where someone had once tried to stake a claim and failed. This is it, Isaac said, stepping down from the saddle. I always thought it looked like a place waiting on someone. Nella climbed from the wagon, boots crunching over dry stalks. She didn't speak right away, just looked. Her face was unreadable, but her hands were steady as she adjusted Zeke's blanket. I thought it'd feel lonelier, she said at last. He untied the mare's reins and led her toward the shade. Most places do until you put something in them. She turned toward the wagon. The oxen need rest. We can't go farther today regardless. We don't need to, Isaac said. You've got choice now. You can stop where you please. She looked over the land again, then back at him. What about you? I've followed trails long enough. I want something to return to. Nella didn't answer, but her silence held weight. She laid Zeke in a shallow nest at the base of the wagon, then walked to the edge of the river and knelt, dipping her fingers into the current. My father used to say you can't know water until you've heard it run at night, she said. He thought the sound changed after dark. Isaac crouched beside her. What do you hear now? She tilted her head. It's slow, careful. Like it's learned how not to rush. He reached into the water too, their arms brushing. You think you'd want to stay here? I think I could, she said, if I wasn't doing it alone. He looked at her, the curve of her cheek, the way her hair had come loose again. You're not. She turned toward him, eyes steady. I know. They built a fire before the light was gone, and Isaac brought down the canvas from the wagon top so they could sleep beneath it. He kept his rifle close out of habit, but his mind was quiet for the first time in a long while. They ate what little remained from the train. Cornmeal cakes, a bit of dried apple, and coffee warmed over the flames. Zeke stirred once, and Nella soothed him without rising, murmuring something Isaac didn't catch. Her voice was soft, but it settled the boy quick. She looked over her shoulder. He's always calmer when he hears me. Isaac nodded. He'll grow sure in that. She sat back against the wheel, knees folded, eyes reflecting firelight. My husband's brother used to say a woman without a man was rootless. Like a branch cut from the tree. Isaac picked up a small stone and turned it in his hand. He was wrong. I know that now, she said, but it still feels like I've been growing sideways, like I had to lean toward whatever light I could find. He set the stone down and met her eyes. Sometimes sideways is the only way you survive, doesn't mean you don't grow strong. She looked at him a long time, then she reached for his hand. I don't want to keep leaning alone, she said. He took her hand in both of his. Then don't. They sat that way until the fire dimmed to coals and the sky deepened. No more words passed between them that night, but something deeper settled. Not promise made with flourish, but truth laid plain. They wanted the same life, and they'd live it together. They rose with the sun. Isaac hitched the oxen and drove the wagon closer to the riverbank, where the soil turned dark and rich. Nella cleared a patch of ground near the cottonwoods and marked where a garden might go. Zeke crawled through the grass, catching at bugs and pulling at leaves. By mid-morning, Isaac had found the remains of a well half-covered but workable. He knelt beside it and looked toward the wagon, where Nella stood with her arms crossed, watching him. Looks like someone gave up on this place, he said. She walked toward him, brushing off her skirt. Then it's ours to try. That afternoon, they laid out plans, where a fence might run, how many hens they'd need come spring, how to build a roof that would keep out snow. Nella drew lines in the dirt with a stick, and Isaac listened, nodding where it mattered, offering his hand when hers grew tired. Zeke toddled between them, falling twice, laughing both times. When the sun dropped low, Isaac hammered the first post into the earth, crooked but holding. Nella stood beside him, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back with a strip of muslin. "You're sure about this?" he asked her. "I'm sure about you," she said. He kissed her, then slow, with both hands on her face, the earth and sky and river all holding quiet around them. Her fingers curled into his shirt, and she kissed him back, sure and steady. That night they slept side by side beneath the wagon, with Zeke curled between them and the sound of the river running slow beyond the trees. Years passed soft and steady. Isaac built a house with his hands would he felled himself, boards planed smooth and nailed straight. Nella grew vegetables that fed more than their table. They took in 3 orphan chickens, then 5 more. Zeke learned to walk without falling, then to run without fear. He grew up in the rhythm of quiet work, laughter over supper, and the sound of his mother's voice humming while she stitched by lamplight. One spring, Nella planted wildflowers along the fences. By summer, they bloomed in bursts of yellow and blue. Isaac built a cradle from ashwood, just like the toy horse he'd once carved. When their second child came, a girl with her mother's eyes, Nella named her Ada, after the wind that always came just before the rain. They never left the river bend. It was not the biggest patch of land nor the richest, but it held them. And in it, they built a life not of survival but of peace. Isaac never rode another trail west. He had found what he'd always been looking for, a place to rest his hands and a woman who'd grown strong, leaning toward the light. She never leaned alone again.